Heyo everybody! And did anybody order a console add-on? Because Sega certainly did to their detriment. Though, honestly, I thought the Sega CD was pretty cool. As for this Sonic game in particular, Sonic CD, it was developed by Sega Japan, and Sonic 2 was developed by a team in the US simultaneously. Since this wasn't the numbered sequel, Sega Japan got to get away with a lot of weird shit. Though before we get into that, let me get into a dramatic reading of the story printed in the US Sega CD manual. Ahem! Let's see now. A world that defies time! Sonic, where are you going now? Sonic the Hedgehog looked over his shoulder at Princess Sally, the young hedgehog who was racing hot on his heels. To Never Lake, he called back. Why Never Lake? Sonic slowed down a little so he could explain. Ever heard of the Little Planet? Isn't that the tiny world that orbits around Mobius? Princess Sally asked. The one with the special stones that alters time and change everything around them? I heard that planet's full of places that are completely ignored by the passage of time. Yeah, on the last month of every year, the Little Planet appears over Never Lake. It's that time now and I'm going to check it out. I bet space travel will be exciting. With all those time stones, I bet you'll try to outrun time itself. Princess Sally sighed in adoration. Sonic didn't reply. He just smiled, eyes gleaming. When they arrived at Never Lake, the Little Planet was there as expected. But something was wrong. Where there should have been tall trees and bright flowers, there was nothing but dry sand and jagged rocks. The Little Planet was tethered to a rock with a huge chain, and its surface was covered with twisted, gleaming metal. What happened? Princess Sally wondered. Before Sonic could reply, something whooshed over them. Princess Sally shrieked as she was snatched up, and she and her captor vanished with a blue streak of light. What the? Princess Sally! It didn't take long for Sonic to realize what had happened. This has to be one of Dr. Robotnik's tricks. Indeed it was. Upon discovering the location of the Little Planet, the evil Dr. Robotnik and his robot cronies had immediately set about converting it to a giant fortress. When Robotnik saw Sonic approaching, he had dispatched his prized creation, the Metal Sonic, to grab Princess Sally and lure his archenemy into danger. How convenient, Robotnik crowed, bouncing about like a malicious rubber ball. This time, my scientific expertise will crush you. Once all of the time stones are in my hands, I'll be able to manipulate time and conquer the world. Oh ho 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 ho! Sonic stood on a rock and thought. Robotnik had controlled the Little Planet. He had Princess Sally, and soon we'll have the time stones. But not if Sonic got to them first. His adventure on the Little Planet was going to be more exciting and dangerous than he'd planned. It was time to get a move on. And so we're clear, the Princess Sally that they're talking about is actually Amy Rose, since this is the game she debuts in. Good thing this is 2018, or things could have been weirder. You know, like all the shit that's in this game.
Just as weird as that is the world and mechanics Sonic has to deal with this time. Yup, it's time to go 88 miles per hour and do some time traveling. To aid you in this task, Sonic has a new move called the Super Peel-Out, in which you hold up while standing still and press and hold jump to rev up speed. Wait a moment and then release jump to speed off. That waiting part is important in that if you release jump too early, you just stand there like an idiot and not go anywhere. This also gets applied to Sonic's Spin Dash when it's done the same way by just holding down instead of up. It actually builds up a similar amount of speed to the Super Peel-Out, which can make its inclusion trivial, as you can take damage while running out of a peel-out. You can use these moves to help you travel through time, which is done by running past a past or future signpost and keeping a specific amount of momentum without stopping. Going to another time alters the level design, which allows you to collect power-ups and rings you couldn't before, or take a route you couldn't in the present time. Going to the past is actually necessary to get one condition to get the good ending. There's little reason to go to the future at all unless you want to take a harder level in the bad future, or make things easy on yourself by making a good future in the past by breaking these enemy generators. By the way, breaking these projectors in the past is completely unnecessary to get the good ending. The other condition to getting the good ending is having 50 or more rings at the end of a stage, a la Sonic 1, to go to Sonic CD's special stages. I'll get into these a bit more in the level overview. Speaking of which... Starting out here in Palm Tree Panic, we get this nice ramp to show off the Sega CD's addition of more sprites for Sonic as he runs up the ramp. Most of the rest of the act has the goal of acclimating you to Sonic's new super pilot and time travel mechanics. This brings me to one of my main criticisms of the time travel mechanic. It makes the level geometry a bit of a goddamn mess. What I mean is that you'll constantly see rings and walls you have no way of collecting, and whenever you time travel, all objects, both collectibles and enemies, are reset, so if you travel back in time to collect something and travel back, the rings will still be there. Oy. By the way, you get to see Amy in Act 1. Whee! Now to them special stages. Sonic decides to go something akin to the SNES's Mode 7 to hunt down 6 UFOs to get a time stone. Touch the water and you'll drain the time quickly by at least 10 seconds. Though this can be increased by an optional UFO that appears when the counter drops below 20. Collect all the time stones and you'll guarantee a good ending in every act going forward. That gets you the good ending, obviously. If you don't want the stones, you have to hit the enemy generator in the past in every single Act 1 and 2, which, while simple at first, gets to be a massive pain in the ass if you don't already know where they are in later zones. Now for Eggman to show up in Act 3, which is just a boss and nothing else. Don't worry, this isn't Sonic 1. He shows up in this weak-ass walker that goes down in 3 hits rather than the usual 8, and you can do all those right behind him. Thanks, devs. Though, fun fact, the walker is pink in the good future. Good on ya, Eggman? Never has a zone name been so accurate. I am not kidding. But before all that happens, Amy goes and gets kidnapped by the most famous Sonic copy in the series, Metal Sonic. Just like any pinball-based zone, you have the usual bumper, springs, and flippers. But those flippers have a unique property in that you cancel your vertical momentum the instant you release the jump button. It makes them far more controllable than Sonic 2's flippers. You can even do this nifty skip in Act 2 where you can just say, "Fuck this act," by speeding over the top of it and finish it in record time. This act's Eggman Boss is just a pinball board where he drops bombs on you to screw you up from getting to the top to finish him in one shot. Unless you get a really lucky run like this one will really annoy you. Oh hey, water level, how you doing? Though I'd honestly say that this has been the easiest water level in a Sonic game for me to record so far. Tidal Tempest usually doesn't give you that much trouble outside of this one badnik that shoots projectiles so small you can barely see them. Are these things just one damn pixel? Anyway, Act 1 has a clear split from the beginning for whether or not you want to take the upper or lower route. Obviously the lower route has water and the top one doesn't. The top route is so easy to stay on top that it makes the lower route not really an option, as this act's past robot generator is right near the end of the act where the path split joins back up. Act 2 is, hey, stop pushing me! I don't know why the devs did that. You get this infinitely scrolling section that has 2 ways of getting out, and that's the most memorable part of Act 2, honestly. Now, I have to say that the Eggman Fight of Tidal Tempest is really interesting in that you have to first chase him down after you hit him 3 times, and then you chase him into the drink and he makes a bubble shield that you have to breathe away to expose him for the last hit. Sometimes you can get lucky and this happens. Really, these bosses just keep getting weirder in design. Oh, Sonic CD! Outside of annoyingly placed enemies and the usual messy level design, I don't have a ton to say about Quartz Quadrant, so I think I can take the time to show off that this is where I ended up getting all the time stones in my good ending run. It's at this point in the game where getting all the robot generators gets to be a pain in the ass to find, so I'd recommend getting all the time stones if you want that good ending. I can also say that this is my favorite zone in terms of visuals. Okay. For the Eggman Boss here, you run on a conveyor belt to melt his station from the bottom while he tries to nail you with bombs that explode into 4 different pieces that can also hurt you. If you just run and jump like this though, Eggman will be toast in no time. Fuck this zone. fuck this place with a... So why don't I like this zone? The floor bounces you up high into the air, and the fastest path through the zone is on the bottom route for once. The bouncing will test your patience as you aim for small moving platforms, while you also have to dodge enemies and ice jets for some reason. You can button mash out of the ice before you take damage if you do end up frozen though. At least I don't hate the Eggman Boss here, which is a vertical chase section that's pretty much over before you know it. The only real hazard besides falling is the row of spikes that'll fall on you on the last stage of the fight, and even then, it's easy to avoid as the hitbox for the spikes deactivate when they land. As the name implies, there's a lot of speedy gimmicks in speed boosters, Donkey Kong Country-esque spring cannons, and tubes throughout Stardust Speedway. There's also these spinning panels that'll take you between backgrounds so you can get past level design you couldn't before. It's pretty easy to get hit by a hazard if you don't know or remember where they're placed. Otherwise, Acts 1 and 2 are done in a flash. Now the biggest thing to come from Sonic CD is the Stardust Speedway Act 3 boss, the race between Sonic and Metal Sonic. It'll taunt you before the race begins and does one of two things depending on where Sonic is in relation to its position. If you're ahead of it, Metal will rocket forward, overtaking you. If you're behind Metal, it'll deploy an electric discharge which will slow it down so you can overtake it. You can't dilly-dally as Eggman is chasing you with a one-hit kill laser, and if you fuck up like I did a lot on my second recording, Metal will close off the exit and you get fried. When you do beat him, instead of the usual flower capsule at the end of the zone, you get to rescue Amy and you have to take her embrace to end the act. Don't worry, Sonic, it'll be all over soon. Just one more zone to go. If anything, Wacky Workbench is more maddening to me than this zone, honestly. This isn't saying Metallic Madness has its flaws in spring traps, lots of enemies and hazards, and really large acts 1 and 2. You have some returning buzzsaw traps from Sonic 1, though they function differently here. The Bombadniks are back and oh boy are they huge. If you want to easily dodge the explosion, you could just stand right next to it as it stands still and move into the center of the projectiles. Tubes once again are back, though you can send Sonic in specific directions at certain points to advance you through the act. The main gimmick here is the shrinking growing lasers in Act 2 that can turn you into a really cute tiny Sonic that keeps all the jump physics of his fully grown self. I feel like this could have been used better, honestly, as it's just navigating a smaller Sonic through a mandatory section. Act 3's pre-boss level is probably the hardest of the bunch thanks to the large bottomless pit right before the last pathway to Eggman. If you screw up, there's an easy one-up you can get right near the start of the act you can grab to keep trying. Thanks, devs! When you get past the bottomless pit section, you get a slow wall of spikes and one locked room with disappearing and reappearing laser bugs you have to take out before finally facing Eggman. Oh hey, the first Sonic final boss you can take on with rings! You'll need them if you want to take out Eggman quickly, as his last machine is very tricky to damage at the start without taking an intentional hit. He'll swing these parts of his machine at you and move about the ring as you land your hits. On the last hit, he'll try to pogo stick you to death. That'll be enough of that, Egghead. With that, Sonic and Amy bail Little Planet as it floats off. Eggman tries to get away as Sonic just pelts a rock at him and he's out of there. Sonic CD's main game is over. What can I say? Sonic CD is a weird game in the series, and unlike the past two entries, it has a bit more to toy around with than just the main game, so how about we look at those? Extras and stuff! So to start with, Sonic has a sound test you can access by inputting down, 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 left, right, then A on the title screen. While you can listen to the soundtrack here, that's not what we're here for. There's some extra images you can access by scrolling to specific numbers and then pressing start. Let's start off with... the message isn't as creepy as you might think it'd be. The text says something along the lines of, "Fun is infinite with Sega Enterprises." The Sonic face, though, is just weird, even for Sonic CD standards. Next up, we have MC Sonic, yo! If you thought Sonic wasn't 90s enough, this should sell the image for ya. This next combination is something out of left field. Sonic and Batman? The fuck? Moving on. Next in line is a chibi-looking Sonic. I don't know what the text says here, though, so sorry about that. The last image CD has for us is a picture of Tails of the race car that has the text, "See ya next game." This one also has the effect of activating the debug mode for Sonic CD. I didn't mention debug mode in the previous Sonic games, so I guess I'll just explain it now. You get to screw around placing whatever kind of object you want in the game, whatever they decide to let you, that is. You can place a large amount of stuff into the level to tank the frame rate if you wish, among other things. The last main thing I want to cover here is a secret special stage that can only be accessed here. You get a large visage of Eggman as you chase the UFOs around, and this stage is tougher than any of the other ones you play in the main game. It's the only one that took me multiple tries to complete. I guess I should also mention the Sonic standing still for 3 minutes thing. If you just go AFC for that amount of time, Sonic gets fed up with your shit and jumps off the screen, leading to an instant game over. This is the only time he does this in the entire series. What gives, man? With all that said and done, though, how about we get to those other version differences with feeling? So before we begin, I need to acknowledge that there's a PC version of Sonic CD, though I don't have that version currently, but it does exist. So let's go on to the port that's in Sonic Gems Collection. This port is based on said PC version, so it plays in 60 frames per second, which works wonders for the main game, and is the first version of Sonic CD that I personally played. The special stages got fucked in this version as they go way too fast. I barely have any control at all, let alone when I get the speed power up from a UFO. Also, the picture quality kinda looks like ass with all that blur on the screen. Sonic CD was also released for Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and mobile devices. This is actually the first of the games to be remade using Christian Whitehead's retro engine, so everything plays smoothly at a consistent FPS with no dips anywhere. The Genesis-style spin dash and tails were added to this version of the game as well, along with the ability to choose between the Japanese and American soundtracks. Probably should have mentioned that earlier, but this is the only US version that lets you play with the Japanese soundtrack in-game. The special stages also play way better than the Gems version. I should mention that the mobile version of Sonic CD in particular is actually the most up-to-date version of the 3 platforms, so if you're going to play any version of Sonic CD, that's the one to go for. And that ends Sonic's weird foray into the CD-ROM era of gaming. Next time will be his largest and probably greatest adventure yet. I'll see you guys next time for Sonic 3!